Every season has its charms. Autumn color is a delight, even to those of us who miss the summer heat. Today, I'll try to capture these autumn colors in homemade ink and dyes. The meadow in front of our house is lousy with mushrooms these days. I have no clue what they are called, but I'll try to make mushroom ink with them. These are not ink caps, which are the mushrooms traditionally used for making mushroom ink, hence the name ink cap, I guess. But these mushrooms are black underneath, and if I run my finger across the underside, it stains my finger. So, stained fingers crossed, these might make decent ink. For my second project, I'm using these berries that grow on the wild vines. Squishing these stains a lot, and that is usually a good sign for dye making. I gathered a little autumn bouquet. I grabbed a few ivy branches as well, just to give it a go. I never successfully made green dye, and if anyone has any tips for me, I'd be extremely grateful. And a few asters for decoration. Oh yeah, I got this board especially so I wouldn't have to do my crafting and other non-food projects on the same cutting board where I prepare food. But it always slips my mind to get the old one out. Okay, we're on the correct board, let's get started. For mushroom ink, as far as I read, all that needs to happen is to fill a jar with mushrooms, then add vinegar and salt, and after that, just wait, basically, until the fungi disintegrate into an inky soup. Shaking things up so everything is well distributed. And already there is some blackness happening. I'll keep the top on loosely to keep dirt out, but let gases escape. I am running a little short on time today, so I'll get into everything else tomorrow. Overnight, the mushrooms have collapsed quite a bit, and there is a lot more liquid. I was in the garden and I found a bit of rusty wire, so I'll try my hand at making iron mordant. I'm currently suffering from an acute jar shortage, so I'll get this started in a can. To make iron mordant, all you need is some rusty iron and cover it with a mixture of 2 parts water and 1 part vinegar. This should be in a tightly closed jar to trap the iron oxide that develops, but as I said, I don't have one of those right now. So I'll cover the can with a double layer of plastic wrap and 4 elastic bands and just hope for the best. I'll move it as soon as I get my hand on an empty jar. Next up, I dug out my crafting pots. These are not used for making food anymore, and generally, even if you're crafting with things that aren't actively harmful, it's still best to keep food and non-food well away from each other. Please don't bring up my older videos, I have only fairly recently started following my own advice. I'm using berries, vines, leaves and all. The beauty of autumn color, to me, is in the muddiness, the air of decay, so hopefully using a slightly mixed up dye matter will produce that effect. Also, I'm lazy. Add water, citric acid and alum. Those are both available off Amazon and fairly cheap. I mean, the alum was 12 euros for a pound, and I'm still working with the first pound I bought, almost 3 years ago. So an initial investment got me years of fun. I'm using 1 tablespoon of alum and half a tablespoon of citric acid. Then it goes on the stove to simmer for about 20 minutes to half an hour. I'm using a smaller pot, less water, and only half a spoon of alum and a quarter spoon of citric acid with the ivy. Because, based on past experiments, I don't have much hope the dye will turn out as I want it to. But that does not mean I'm gonna stop trying. So, the moment of maximum excitement has arrived. And nothing. There is no dye. But as I got rid of the ivy pot later that day, I noticed suds. So I didn't make ivy dye, I just flushed out the saponins from the leaf and accidentally made ivy soap. That might be a fun project for another day. After that dud, let's move on to the vine dye. And it actually is a dye. And quite a nice pink too. I have this old but clean, but old handkerchief, and Pinterest keeps showing me Shibori pins, so I'll try my hand at that. That first fold is a bit messy, so let's try that again. The 3 clips should give a neat pattern after dyeing. I'm leaving it to sit for 5 minutes. For the pattern to come out really well, it's best to let the fabric dry a few days before undoing the clips, otherwise the wet dye would just move around and ruin the pattern. So I'm taking 2 days off from this project. Welcome back everyone! The handkerchief is mostly dry, and the mordant and mushroom ink are still doing their thing. As I unclipped the handkerchief, I noticed dots on the fabric where the metal clips reacted. So plastic next time, or even better, and the traditional method, wood. But it worked, and I love it. Because I don't currently have anything else I want to dye, I'm reducing the dye liquid. I already started, and now I have a layer of grime on top, because I left some of the plant matter in the dye. So let's get that out and reduce the dye even more. I've got it on the hob at a very low temperature for a few hours. I'm checking in about once an hour to make sure everything is proceeding as usual and no funkiness is happening. With natural pigment, you just never know. All in all, it was on the stove for 2.5 hours. To make it usable as an ink, I'm adding gum arabic, which is a thickener. There's different thickeners you could use, but I've always used gum arabic because that's what I have at home. The handkerchief has been washed and ironed, and I'm extremely in love with the result. And I found 2 jars! Happy days! First things first, I'm giving the iron mordant a proper home. It has changed color, so something must have happened. But proper iron mordant is supposed to be an orange-brown color as far as I know, so I don't know what's going on. Now let's strain the mushroom ink. I'm so excited about this one. I was toying with the idea of reducing the liquid down on the stove, but I wanted to see as is first. Alright, the first swatch is just mushroom, vinegar and salt and 5 days disintegration. That cross is the same ink, but stirred and mixed properly. I'm adding a little gum arabic and then I'll try writing with my quill. Nice. Please keep in mind, this quill is literally the first one I ever cut and it's nearly a year old by now. Any weaknesses are probably with the quill, not the ink. The ink is really nice to work with and really dark, and I'm pretty ecstatic about how it turned out. It's good to know that once we live in the future post-civilization wasteland, we will still be able to write letters to each other. There's a happy thought. Let's give the iron mordant a try. It is kind of early, it should develop for about 2 weeks and it's only been 1 so far. And that week wasn't under the best circumstances. But if it does do something, these lines in the painting should make the color darker. Iron mordant improves light fastness and lets dye resist washing better. So it'd definitely be handy to have around. Now, let's see what we've got. Add some salt too, because what the hell? This clip is 2.5 hours condensed down to 20 seconds. Thick layers of paint dry red, the thin layers are greenish grey, and if you look closely you can see the mordant lines darkening the paint. Alright, in conclusion, ivy dye was a total dud. Vine dye takes a bit of work, and if you look at the footage right now, I'm just playing around, but the point is it's a few days later and the wine ink dries pretty much all red, so letting it sit for a few days has made a difference that I can't explain, but I'm very happy about. And the star of the show, mushroom ink. I'm in love. Very dark, flows well, just a pleasure to work with. I just need to remember to shake it up before use. And that's all I've got for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, why not subscribe?